Why should God take me back after all the things that I've done? Well, it's a fair question. I mean, people only know a little bit about you. And when they find out something bad, they reject you. But God knows everything. And on top of that, you left Him. But there are some things you haven't considered. We're going to talk about them now. They're going to help you come home. This is the estate of a wealthy landowner. There's plenty everywhere you look. Verdant green, beautiful buildings at the top of the hill. If you're in this family, you've got it made. So who would ever leave a situation like this? You would, and I would. Yeah. See, because the truth is, what it takes to keep something beautiful like this is rules and boundaries and restrictions. There's a lot of things that are put in place that everybody doesn't get a vote on. And before you know it, if you're not getting what you think you should get, if you're not getting enough spotlight and compensation, you're going to say, I'm out of here. I'm going to go somewhere else and figure that I can find another place where I'll be more valued. This place doesn't need me. I need to go find my own way. So this recording I'm doing is for people who have been in a place like this before. Home. Had a good situation before. Or maybe you've been in a church before. Maybe you've been in a ministry, a spiritual situation, something like that, that eventually you said, you know what, I'm going to escape from this. This is a natural parallel, so is the story that I'm about to tell you, of a spiritual condition. And all of us at some point start to feel like, am I in the right place? Am I getting what I'm supposed to get? The answer a lot of times we feel like is no. And so it causes us to go out on our own, looking for our own thing, searching for our own way. When things become a mess, we wonder, will God really take me back? We're going to answer that question today by looking at somebody in the Bible that you've heard of before. There is a story that's very famous. It's called the story of the prodigal son. I know you've heard of it. It's about a young man, the younger son, who decided he'd had it. He was done with how things were being done at the estate, with his father and his family. And it was time for him to move on to something new. So he went to his father and he said, whatever it is that you've got coming to me, give it to me now. That's how we feel a lot of times. We know that there's good things in store for us, that God even will bless us, but we get tired of waiting. See, youth says, whatever it is, give it to me now. That's youthful zeal. But the wisdom of age says, I want you to save it for me so that when I'm ready to handle it, it'll still be there. But that's a difficult lesson for a young person, regardless what your background is. I know that it's difficult because I already know what's here. So why should I stay? I already know. I already know the rules. I already know the regulations. I feel like I've reached my ceiling here. I've reached my potential. Things really can't get much better for me here. I'm out. I want to go do something new. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do something new, but there's a timing and a procedure for everything. And unfortunately, if we're not ready, when we get ready to go out with our inheritance, the thing that we know is coming to us, it won't last long. Now, for those of you who know the story, you know that the father gave the younger son his share of the inheritance in the estate, and he let him go. He said, go ahead and do what you want to do. That begs a question, at least for me, about not only this story, but about God and his interactions within our lives. Why did the father let him go in the first place? He knew he wasn't ready. Why does God let us walk away from good situations, spiritually speaking, a church, a ministry, an organization, a business, whatever it is that's really good for us, but we just walk away? And the answer is because he has to answer the question that's deep inside of our hearts about him and his faithfulness to us. And that question is, are you still going to love me then? When? When I do whatever I want to do. When I go and do what's in my heart, Would I really do it the way I want to do it? Whether it works or it doesn't work, are you still going to love me then? That's the essence of what we really want to know as human beings. One of the greatest moments of my life was a marriage appointment that I had with a young couple many, many years ago. In a frustrating and tense moment during the meeting, she looked at me and says, I'm going to have moments where I'm crazy, where I'm acting like a maniac, where I'm a disaster, where I'm just hormonal, and I want to know, can he handle it? That's what she said. And I thought to myself, that is the most honest reaction I've ever heard anybody say. I will give you the same answer that I gave her, which is that you're not crazy. That's just how we are as humans on the inside. We want to know at the end of the day, when I'm at my worst, will you still love me? That's the cry of a wife and a husband in marriage. That's the cry of human beings towards God. Even when I do what I want to do and I know I'm not supposed to do, are you still going to be faithful to me? So the younger son left and he found the life that he wanted, man. He did that thing. He found it. And the interesting thing about that is you would think that when you go and start doing stuff that you're not supposed to do, it would be hard and you wouldn't like it. Let me tell you, it's always the opposite. When you walk away from the good thing, you're always going to find what you want. It's always going to be amazing. It's always going to be cool at first. But unfortunately, every dream life that we have imagined that doesn't have God in the equation has a very short shelf life. What the younger son began to realize after a while was that he was running out. He was running out of money. In fact, he was running out of friends. The riotous living, crazy parties, getting it done, whatever he wanted to do, man, that thing was happening. Nobody was stopping him for a while. But unfortunately, that kind of lifestyle can't last forever. And so eventually he found himself in a place he didn't think he would ever be in. And he wondered, what am I going to do next? His life was out of control. And he was without. And then something happened to him that happened to everybody. And the whole region was suffering together. What was it? It wasn't COVID-19. It was a famine. There was a famine in the land. Now here's the problem with disaster, is that disaster hits everybody. But when you're out of provision, it hits you worse. He was already broke. He was already in want because he squandered everything he had. And then the famine came. So that made it extra hard on him. Now, it doesn't say that he had a specific turning point in his mind, but I saw it when I was reading that story. What was his turning point? It says, nobody would give anything to him. And he found himself eating with animals. And he said, I could do better than this if I were to go back to my father's house. It always takes that for us to awaken and realize that we had it good back in the other place. It takes us getting to a point where nothing's working. Nobody's giving us anything. It's not happening the way it's supposed to. The dream feels like it's dying. I'm putting all my energy and my effort into it, but it's just not working. God's not blessing it anymore. See, he gave us the share of our inheritance. We went and took it and did what we wanted to with it. But he can't let that way of living just be blessed forever because there's no long-term future in it. So there's a shelf life, and eventually he begins to turn off. That good living, that good thought, that blessing you thought would be there forever, he begins to turn it off because he knows there's no future in it. The turning point was when nobody would give him anything. Man, that's another way of saying he was ready to receive some hard truth. And that's when he thought to himself, I could go back to my father's house and be in a better situation than I am now. When he left the father's house, he was in good shape, man. He had money. He was cool. That's how we are in the beginning when we leave. Everything's going to be fine. You see that? But in the end, when the famine came and he was decimated, nobody would give him a thing. And he was more like this, torn apart, nothing left, wondering what his next move should be. So the question we have to ask then is the one that we asked in the beginning. Why would God take me back? Why? Morgan, do you have anything to tell me about that? I'm glad you asked. I've got 3 reasons and 3 things I want to say about that. The first is that the heart of the Father is always to seek and to save that which is lost. That's why Jesus came. He even said it himself. I've come to seek and save that which is lost. Talking about people, not pennies or not gold or silver, but people. The most valuable possession to God is people. That reflects the heart of the Father. That's the reason why the Father would take you back. Let me just say, he is always in the process of coming after us, always in the process of seeking us and looking for us, even when we aren't looking for him. He's watching over us, and everything that happened to you, God saw it coming. Nothing snuck up on him, and he wasn't surprised by it at all. Whatever situation you are in, he is committed to saving you from it. The Father was like that too in this story. He would have done anything he had to do to save his son from a bad situation. He saw him at a distance. That's what the scripture says. And when he was far off, the Father was glad to see him and ran to meet him because he was committed to finding that which is lost. Another reason or thing I want to tell you about why God would take you back, I want to tell you this. Your standing with God is about his commitment to you, not your commitment to him. If you've ever made a profession of faith or been a Christian or gone down a spiritual path and then gone away, you probably think, man, I messed up. I went back on my word. I didn't do what I said that I was going to do. And you know what? You're right. But this relationship you have with this God who's loving and kind, it's not really just about your commitment and what you did. It's about him. See, he has character, and his ways and his word actually mean something. When he says, I'm going to do it, he means it. And he has the ability to see into the future, to know what's going to happen, and the power to execute his will. And so his commitment to you and to me is really about him more so than it's about us. God knows what we did. We put ourselves in that position. Hey, we left. We went away. But God says, I'm going to be patient with you, looking for you. When you come back, I want you to know I've got a place for you. You don't have to come back as a slave. You can actually come back as a son. You don't have to come back as a servant. You can come back as an heir of this household. Anything that the Father would have given him, even disgrace and shame, probably would have been what he deserved. But the Father said, no, you're coming back as my son. God will always give us better than what we deserve. And the thing I want to tell you last is that God still has his best in store for you. That's right. You mean even after I screwed all these things up? Yes. In our story, the Father looked at the Son and said, I've got my best in store for you. He said, just give me anything. I'm not even worthy to be called your son. The Father looked at one of his servants and said, go get the fatted calf. In other words, go get what we've been preparing, what we've been waiting for. Let's celebrate because my son that was lost is now coming home and he's here. In other words, you're not going to miss out on anything that God has for you. He still has the best in store. That's what's amazing about serving this God is that you can take vacation. I can go away and do something else. And still, if we return to him with all of our hearts, it does not derail the purpose that he has for us. He still has his best in store for me and you. And your best is still yet to come when we return to him with a humble heart. God already knows what's out there in this world apart from him. It's not good. But he has a place for us that's very different than what we found in the world. Being beat, being torn up, being destitute, and at our wits' end. That's not how I want to live. But he has something else in store for us. something much better. It says when he got home, they put the signet ring on him, they put the robe on him, and he took his place as royalty. I don't know about you, but I would rather have a robe and royalty with God than be destitute in the world. God's waiting for you by the side of the road. He wants to take you back. Come on home. wmorganbates.com. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Blessings.